5 days after leaving Lartania, the group's carriage travels along a scenic coastal road. Glancing out the window at the bright blue ocean, Alon points out the sea, prompting an amazed Evan to agree, as Alon notes that they will be arriving at Raxas soon. Suddenly, someone screams for them to stop, and the carriage screeches to a violent, dusty halt. From inside, Evan angrily demands to know what is going on before throwing the carriage door open. Stepping outside, he spots a young kid blocking the path and quickly runs forward, warning the child that standing in the road is dangerous. However, the young boy, wearing an oversized blue wizard's hat, simply demands food. Emphasizing his bold request, the kid points a finger directly at Evan and orders the mercenary to give him something to eat. Utterly bewildered by the bizarre situation, Evan is soon joined by Alon, who walks up from behind and asks what the matter is. With Evan struggling to explain, the mysterious kid dramatically closes his eyes and declares that he will just have to reveal his true identity. Striking a highly flashy pose, the boy proudly introduces himself as Pelin, a rank 3 genius hailing from the Blue Magic Tower. Maintaining his arrogant display, Pelin confidently offers the travelers a rare, once-in-a-lifetime chance to gain the favor of a powerful mage in exchange for a meal. Unimpressed, Alon and Evan simply stare at the dramatically leaning boy in deadpan silence. While Evan sarcastically remarks on the boast, Alon internally acknowledges that if the kid truly is a rank 3 mage, then he is indeed a legitimate genius. Just as he finishes his sentence, a furious voice suddenly shouts his name. A young girl with matching blue twin tails storms onto the scene, furiously scolding Pelin and asking if he is still pulling this nonsense. Pelin casually addresses the angry girl as Penia. However, as Penia turns her attention toward the two men, she suddenly freezes, staring at them in absolute shock and breaking out into a nervous sweat as a confused gasp escapes her lips. Completely oblivious to his sister's terrified reaction, Pelin confidently boasts to Penia that he was going to secure them some food this time. Horrified that her brother just tried to extort Count Palacio for food, Penia violently beats Pelin into the ground before immediately dropping to her knees. Pressing her face into the dirt, she grovels and profusely apologizes to the Count, desperately trying to excuse her brother's behavior by explaining that he grew up completely sheltered inside the magic tower and remains entirely ignorant of how the real world works. Alon calmly observes the chaotic scene, simply noting that it has been a while since they last met and expressing relief that no one was hurt. Sweating nervously, Penia forces an awkward laugh and loudly declares what a massive coincidence it is to run into him here. Meanwhile, a battered Pelin stares at his sister in absolute shock, completely unable to believe that she is actually capable of being polite. He mentally recalls that just yesterday, she ruthlessly battered a noble with her staff without a single moment of hesitation, sending the man flying through the air, encased in magic, as Pelin cheered her on. Watching his sister grovel so pitifully, Pelin sighs in disappointment, dramatically lamenting how tragic it is to see a supposed hero succumb to the harsh realities of the times. Observing the bizarre interaction from the sidelines, Evan simply mutters that kids these days are way too weird. Unable to hold his tongue, Pelin loudly calls out to Penia, mockingly expressing his utter disbelief that she actually knows how to use proper honorifics. His taunt instantly causes Penia's face to darken with pure murderous rage as she commands him to shut up. Without holding back, she unleashes a rapid, violent flurry of strikes on the poor boy, beating him mercilessly in a blur of motion. Panting heavily from the exertion, she turns back to Alon and resumes her apologies, begging him to understand that her brother is just young and foolish. Leaning in close to Alon, Evan quietly whispers that there truly are a lot of crazy mages in this world. Alon internally reflects on his knowledge of the game, recalling that Penia always possessed a rather twisted personality, though he had previously assumed the harsh state of the world was to blame for it. Pushing the thought aside, Alon notes that the siblings appear to be in a bind and generously offers to let them travel in his carriage, if they are also heading to Raxas. Penia hesitates, nervously confirming that Raxas is their destination, but seeming deeply unsure about actually accompanying him. Seeing her reluctance, Alon calmly assures her that she has every right to refuse his offer. The very concept of refusing leaves Pena completely stunned. Alon clarifies that he merely wants to help them out, and that they are under no obligation to accept. Instantly dropping her hesitation, Pena aggressively leans forward and desperately begs Alon to let them come along. Shortly after, the carriage resumes its smooth journey down the beautiful, sunlit coastal road. Inside the comfortable cabin, Pelin happily stuffs his face with a large loaf of bread, while Alon crosses his arms and asks the siblings why they were begging for food on the side of the road. Pena, also enjoying a piece of bread, explains that she is currently on a mission for the Tower Master. She awkwardly admits that they had a bit of a disagreement with the caravan they had originally joined, forcing them to make a very quick getaway. Angrily chiming in with his mouth full, Pelin fiercely defends their actions by claiming it was for a good cause. The young boy insists that they never meant to cause a huge scene, explaining that they merely wanted to punish a scammer. Before Pelin can say another word, Pena violently shoves a massive loaf of bread directly into her brother's mouth, successfully silencing him as his cheeks bulge comically. Evan and Alon watch the aggressive display in silence before a sweating Pena awkwardly changes the subject. Noting that the Count is heading to Raxos, she eagerly offers to share some highly useful information. As she explains the current situation, Alon is genuinely surprised to learn that ships have been mysteriously disappearing. Pena clarifies that this bizarre phenomenon is only occurring along the Relic coast, where entire vessels are being strangely pulled straight down to the bottom of the ocean. The scene visually shifts to the dark, watery depths as she reveals that local treasure hunters believe the culprit to be fishmen, though she notes that nothing is certain since that particular race supposedly vanished a long time ago. Hearing this, Alon's mind immediately races. He silently reflects that if it truly isn't a natural phenomenon, then nobody in this world should even be aware of the fishmen's existence yet. Drawing on his deep knowledge of the game's lore, he calculates that even with the butterfly effect and other unpredictable variables altering the timeline, this development is incredibly strange. He recalls that while the game system allows the appearance of outer gods to fluctuate, the timeline for the fishmen is entirely fixed, meaning it is simply way too early for them to show up. Sitting in the shadowed cabin, Alon comes to a chilling conclusion, realizing that this premature sighting might actually be a grim sign that yet another outer god is preparing to arrive. The tense atmosphere is broken when the carriage finally arrives at the bustling port of Kimin, located on the beautiful sunlit outskirts of Raxos, in the Principality of Corica. From the driver's seat, Evan announces that they have to stop here, explaining that they must take a boat from the port to reach the capital. The group disembarks and makes their way down the busy wooden pier toward a large, imposing ship. Approaching a smug-looking captain, Alon casually asks for the price of a crossing. The captain bluntly demands 100 gold per person, a completely outrageous fee that instantly sends Pena into a furious rage. Putting her hands on her hips, the blue-haired mage angrily yells that the price is an absolute joke. Unfazed by her outburst, the arrogant captain simply scoffs, declaring that it is his boat and his price, and challenging them to wait 2 full weeks for the next public ferry if they don't like it. Observing the man's sheer audacity, Alon internally deduces that the captain must have some serious high-level backing to act so boldly. Seeing no other viable option to continue their urgent journey, Alon calmly steps forward and drops a heavy sack containing 400 gold coins directly into the greedy man's hands. The captain's eyes immediately light up with delight as he enthusiastically welcomes them aboard. Meanwhile, Evan's jaw drops in utter shock, frantically questioning why the Count would willingly pay 10 times the normal price. As they walk up the wooden ramp to board the vessel, Alon simply replies that he cannot afford to wait 2 weeks, secretly thanking the King of Colony for providing him with the vast wealth necessary to casually afford such a ridiculous luxury. Glancing back at the 2 stunned siblings following him, Alon quietly sighs to himself, noting that he always assumed high-ranking mages were wealthy, and wondering if he really needed to cover Pena's expensive fare after all. With the entire group finally on board, the grand ship catches the wind and sets sail, cutting smoothly across the sparkling blue ocean toward their next dangerous destination. One day after their departure, Alon leans comfortably against the ship's wooden railing, taking a moment to appreciate the relaxing sea breeze and sparkling ocean. His companions, however, are completely defeated by the rocking waves. A deeply nauseous Evan clutches his stomach and groans about their 3-day travel time, prompting Alon to calmly suggest the suffering mercenary go lie down. Nearby, Penia and Pelin are draped over the edge, violently emptying their stomachs into the water. Watching the formidable mages and seasoned fighters suffer, Alon internally notes that seasickness does not discriminate and is based entirely on pure luck. While he usually laments his tiny mana core, he quietly praises his current physical body for miraculously sparing him from the miserable affliction. His peaceful moment is suddenly shattered by a deafening explosion as a massive cannonball violently crashes into the water right beside them. Panic instantly erupts across the deck as the terrified crew frantically screams that they are under attack. The once arrogant captain demands to know who is firing, just as grappling hooks latch onto the railings, and a swarm of armed men swing aboard on thick ropes. Realizing they are being boarded by ruthless pirates, Alon quickly grabs a nearby wooden pillar to keep from falling as the ship rocks violently, worried the attackers' aggressive maneuvers will capsize the entire boat. Scanning the chaotic deck, he watches the pirates easily overpower the crew. With Evan and Penia completely incapacitated by their severe seasickness and utterly unable to fight back, Alon realizes he is their only line of defense. Preparing to step in, he carefully slips his black, magical casting claws onto his fingers, but nervously calculates the massive risks. Given the sheer power of his abilities, a lack of perfect control could easily end up destroying the very boat they are standing on. Before he can even attempt to manifest a spell, the sharp ring of unsheathing steel echoes behind him, and a cold blade is pressed directly against his throat. Alon flinches in surprise as the imposing pirate leader, a confident, smirking man with a brown ponytail and a blue sash, steps up and chillingly warns the Count that if he moves, he is dead, staring down the deadly sword resting against his neck. Alon carefully suppresses his magic and rationally concludes it is best to simply play along with his fierce new captors for the time being, as the massive pirate vessel pulls tightly alongside their own. As the pirate ship fully docks, the cowardly captain immediately attempts to negotiate for his own life. Frantically waving his bound hands, he offers the pirates absolutely everything on board, secretly panicking in his mind about needing to deliver some mysterious basement cargo to someone called the Seawolf. Desperate to save his own skin, the treacherous captain loudly points out that his passengers include valuable mages and a wealthy noble who would fetch a massive ransom, begging the raiders to just let him leave with his ship in exchange. Bound and kneeling on the deck, Evan groans in disgust, asking if the bastard is seriously selling them out, to which Alon dryly replies that it is entirely obvious. Glancing over, Alon silently notices Penia already using her magic to quietly snap her bonds. Deciding it is time to make a move, Alon prepares to break his own restraints, discreetly slipping his black casting claw into position. However, a massive impact violently strikes the wooden deck, creating a large crater and instantly silencing the babbling captain, while leaving everyone frozen in shock. Stepping from the settling dust is an imposing figure, clad in gleaming silver armor and a flowing blue cape. A wave of terror washes over the deck, as whispers spread that this is none other than the Sea King, the legendary great pirate who brutally unified 6 of the 7 archipelagos. The terrifying lore surrounding the man paints him as a ruthless conqueror who personally slaughtered rival captains, sank over 50 ships, and even obliterated Black Tooth, cementing his reputation as one of the greatest pirates of their era and a bloodthirsty scoundrel who kills purely for fun. Heralded as a true demon of the seas, the armored pirate king strides confidently forward into the light. Hearing a nearby pirate doubt that they actually captured a noble, the terrified captain frantically points a finger straight at Alon, loudly insisting that it is the truth. While Penia watches anxiously, silently questioning why the Count is just sitting there doing absolutely nothing to defend himself, the fearsome Sea King suddenly stops in his tracks. His imposing, menacing demeanor vanishes into pure surprise as he stares down at the bound noble. the fearsome pirate utters a confused gasp, softly addressing Alon as his boss. Looking up at the towering legendary figure, Alon finally recognizes the terrifying Pirate King as his adopted son, Radahn. Realizing that their very first meeting in person is unfolding in a far more chaotic way than he ever could have anticipated. Dropping his menacing persona entirely, Radahn eagerly rushes over to ask what his adopted father is doing all the way out here. Alon calmly replies that he is heading to Raxus. Watching the infamous Sea King treat a captive with such genuine respect leaves the pirate who previously threatened Alon completely flabbergasted, while Penia and Pelin stare in starry-eyed amazement, quietly wondering how the Count is casually friends with the walking calamity of Roxas. With a quick swing of his weapon, Radahn effortlessly slices the ropes binding his adopted father, playfully complaining that Alon should have warned him about the trip. Alon explains that he had fully intended to contact him once he finished his current business, never expecting to just run into him like this. Observing him closely, Alon internally confirms the young man's identity. He recalls that in the original game, Radahn was the only member of the 5 mortal sins whose human appearance was never revealed, depicted exclusively as a white-haired, white-eyed monster. However, combining his deep game knowledge with Evan's past descriptions was more than enough to recognize his adopted son. Radahn suddenly spots the nauseous mercenary and cheerfully greets him as uncle, noting it has been a long time. Still recovering from his seasickness, Evan awkwardly thanks the Pirate King for saving them before nervously directing his attention to the treacherous captain. Before Evan can even finish pointing out the betrayal, Radahn's demeanor instantly turns deadly. In a single ruthless blur, he swings his massive weapon and brutally decapitates the terrified captain on the spot. As blood sprays wildly from the neck like a fountain, a terrifyingly cheerful Radahn casually notes that anyone who tries to sell out his boss deserves nothing less. Standing right next to the headless corpse, he turns back to Alon with a bright smile, promising a safe escort to Raxas, but eagerly suggesting a quick detour to his base in the 7 archipelagos first. Horrified by his son's casual brutality, a trembling Alon instantly agrees to the break, internally panicking over whether Radahn has already evolved into one of the dreaded 5 sins. Half a day later, the ship finally docks at a massive, breathtaking island city, bustling with extravagant ships. The moment the anchor drops, an incredibly dizzy Evan and Penia practically weep with joy, utterly relieved to be on solid ground while staring in awe at the sheer, overwhelming size of the magnificent pirate sanctuary. Walking down the gangplank with Pelin following close behind, Alon looks out at the sprawling, sunlit city and notes that it doesn't look like a typical pirate town at all. Taking in the stunning architecture, clean streets, and grand buildings bathed in a warm sunset glow, he remarks that it looks more like a meticulously planned city. He realizes that this is the first archipelago, Radahn's very own territory within the 7 archipelagos, and the true center of his unified pirate empire. Later, as they walk through the grand city, Alon casually mentions that it is strange how all his adopted children seem to recognize him immediately. Walking beside him with Radahn, Evan cheerfully explains that the kids specifically requested a portrait of Alon while they were at the orphanage because they were so desperate to see what their generous benefactor looked like. A confused Alon suddenly recalls that right after he inherited the county, Evan had aggressively forced him to pose for an official painting. A grinning Radahn chimes in, playfully adding that the Count's legendary reputation definitely precedes him. That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.